What it do? It's your boy, Illuminated D, and you know what I'm saying? We back with another one. The first thing I want to do is thank you to everybody who's liked and commented. And to all the subscribers, Pops and I want to let you know how much we really appreciate you. For you to come and spend your time with us and to consume the content while we understanding that you have busy lives, we want to thank you and bless. Well, family, I got a new story time for y'all. This is probably huge, and I promise you that you don't want to miss this. I want to give you this story on how I almost got bamboozled into 18 years of child support. Now, check this out. I was on a dating site. I don't exactly remember which dating site, but I think it was either blacked or it was like tagged. So one day, you know what I'm saying, I was getting heavy traffic because I was doing my streaming, right? And pretty much what happened is I was approached by this one chick, and then she said, hey, I was wondering, maybe we could have like a deep conversation. I want to give you some bread. Now, there's always a catch. There's always a catch. So remember, there's always a catch. If somebody says, I want to pay you, usually there's a catch. It's either you got to smash, you got to send some pictures, you know what I'm saying? You got to pull an OnlyFans with the pictures. They usually want something out of the deal, right? But she says, look, there's no catch. There's no catch. So I say, okay, well, tell me about this. Tell me about this. I'm interested. Now, and the reason why I'm telling y'all this story is because Pops just made this video about the sperm donor. So this ties two and two together. So what happens is there was these two chicks. So she ends up introducing me to her homegirl or her girlfriend pretty much. And they pretty much, they link up and they say, hey, look, we're trying to have a baby and we're interested in pretty much finding a sperm donor, and we seen your pictures. We wanted to meet you in person. You look like a very fine specimen. Like you just got the structure. We just love your jaw, love your body, love the abs. And we figured that if we have a baby with you, then pretty much we'll have the ability to, get those same good genetics pretty much. So I say, okay. I said, that's interesting. I said, you got my attention here. You got my attention. I said, so what's in it for me? I said, if I'm willing to, be your sperm donor. She says, look, we're willing to give you 20K. I said, ooh, now look, 20 bands, 20 bands, you can do a lot with 20 bands. It's not necessarily the most amount of money, because if you got debt, if you got all this different type of stuff, then it may not be a lot. But to the average citizen, it is a lot of bread, right? So check this out. I'm like, dang, I said, well, 20 bands? I said, I'll be your sperm donor for 20 bands. I said, what, you got the money? She pulls out hard, cold cash. Here you go. 20 bands right here. I'm like, dang. I said, well, how are we supposed to do this? I said, what do you want me to do? They said, well, pretty much all you got to do is just smash my girl. I said, what? I said, you're going to let me smash? She said, well, look, we're just going to have a threesome, and the whole purpose of this is for you to get her pregnant. She said, we want you to get her pregnant. That's the goal, but we want to do it during the threesome so that it doesn't feel like I'm left out. That's what the other one says. I said, I don't know. I said, look, I'm down for the threesome. I'm down for it. I'm not new to this. But I said, at the same time, me smashing, I said, well, how about I go through a sperm donor clinic, and then pretty much you can get the sperm from the sperm donor, and because I'm willing to do it for you, you give me the 20 bands. They say, no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. We want it to be an intimate experience. So we're going to give you the 20,000. So we do the threesome until she gets pregnant. And then after that, then, you'll fulfill your obligation. I said, well, we're going to have to do some paperwork around this. They said, well, we're not really into the paperwork. I said, here's the issue that I'm having with this whole thing. I said, I'm willing to do it, But I said the problem that happens is just because I take this 20 bands and then I get you pregnant, that doesn't stop me from having the legal responsibility or me being legally liable in the background or at some point to have to take care of this child, although you're saying that you don't want me to be involved with the whole pregnancy. She said, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, pretty much, if we go through a sperm donor clinic, then that means that I don't have any legal obligation to the child. But if I do a threesome with you all and then one of you gets pregnant, then pretty much I'm liable for this child, which means that the baby's my responsibility because it wasn't done within the legal bounds of me not having to have any responsibility due to me not necessarily wanting a child at that time. They said, well, look, if you're just not willing to do it, somebody will do it. Somebody will do it. I said, listen, I'm willing to do it. But the problem is that we're not doing it in the right setting. So that means that I'll be responsible. And then at some point, you can come after me for child support. And I'm just not looking to take care of a child that I'm not necessarily trying to have right now. And I'm not trying to take care of a child that you two are saying that you want. And then, because I'm like, this is the issue. If y'all break up and then all of a sudden you're saying that you need help, it's easy to come after me in court because we didn't do it legally through the right paperwork trail. So, scene, right? Now, I want to tell you, I ended up not doing it, family, because I'm smart. The average Joe, they're going to be so gung-ho because they want a threesome. They going to just be wanting to smash. But here's the problem with that, right? And I want to tell y'all, beware of these dating sites and how people approach you, because if you're a good-looking individual, you have a little something in the background, you know you got a little bread, you got a nice spot, you got a nice car, it's not that hard for people to come and approach you. But the problem is that if you take one of these deals, you got to hear me, if you take one of these deals and you don't do it in the right setting, you're liable for 18 years of child support. 18 years. And you got to remember, it's not just 18 years because the child's going to come and ask forever. They're going to always need your wisdom and your knowledge. And I'm okay for paying child support if I had a baby and that was my goal and then we just didn't work out. I believe full-fledged that you should take care of your children. But in that setting, you got to realize that if you have a child and it's not through a sperm donor and you just do it through smashing, instantly you're liable for 18 years of child support. And it's not just 18 years, it's for life. Because remember, the child's going to always need you for something. If it may not be for money, it may be just for wisdom, a conversation. And at that point, it becomes a hard tale, because if they don't work out, who's going to be at fault? Who's going to be the one to take responsibility for this? Who's going to be the one at fault? It would be me. So for any other guys out there that are on these dating sites or they're getting approached and people are asking you, hey, are you willing to be my sperm donor? Are you willing to have my child? And you know, you don't have to have any responsibility. We're going to do everything. Don't believe that. Always go through the sperm donor, the clinic, do the paperwork so that you don't necessarily have liability, or you're not a liability in the background, or they don't become liabilities to your life in the background, right? Now, the next thing I was thinking of as I was like this, hey, look, I see a lot of people going through this. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? Why not just get surrogates and a sperm donor then? Just go to the sperm donor clinic or go sign up to have a surrogate. If you're really so adamant on not having to pay child support or not having to go through the confusion of, you know, somebody having a child and then y'all split and then now they're weaponizing the child so you can't see your child because they feel like you don't want to be with them or they don't want to be with you. So now they're like, okay, you don't get to see the kid. Hey, just be smart about it. Men, hey, just go and have a surrogate. If you just think that you want to have a child so bad at some point and you're scared, then all you got to do is go to the sperm donor clinic, go find a surrogate online, have somebody hold the baby for you, make sure that they are willing to sign over the rights. They do the whole thing at the beginning so that they can't keep the kid. And then all you got to do is just have the birth, and then you take the child after the birth. Or women, if you just want to do it the same way, like Pops just made that video, you just, you go to the sperm donor clinic, you get pregnant, and then boom, you got a baby. The only difference is that you don't have the liabilities in the background where people can weaponize the children. I know that that's not necessarily the most conventional way to do it, but the way that the world is looking, it's looking real tricky, because a lot of people are using the children as weaponization. They're using the children to get more money. They're using the children as a loophole in order to destroy people's lives sometimes. And I think children are a beautiful thing, and I don't think that we should be going down this route. So I'm going to say a smarter option in the future, if people are just so gung-ho where they're just like, you know what, I'm not willing to do it the conventional way. Men, all you got to do is find a surrogate to hold the baby for you. Make sure you do the right paperwork, and then boom, you got a child. But the only difference is you don't have a mother to help you take care of the child. So you better know what you're doing. And women, if you want to have a baby, but you don't want to necessarily deal with the man, well, look, you can go and have a baby, go to the sperm donor clinic and have the baby. But the only difference is that you don't get any child support. And it's seeming that if people really started thinking about this deeper, they probably wouldn't even have kids, because when they start looking at the whole conundrum that is involved with having to raise a child by yourself, having to do everything by yourself, feed the child, clothe the child, take the child to daycare, pay for more food as they grow, pay for more clothes, they'll probably be a little bit wiser on deciding when and in what setting they're having their children, so that they can be more financially stable, more mentally stable, more emotionally stable, in order to make sure that you're raising good citizens for the future who can actually contribute and do something positive for the community. But until then, we all want to be successful. We all want to be somewhere in life. But in order to do that, you got to do something that you ain't never done before. And that's the reason that we're doing this right here, right now. Everybody be blessed. Be safe. We out. Peace.